Welcome to Dave, Kibby and Sheela Masand's business session. So I think, given that we're a very small group, I'm interested, I don't know about you, Dave, I'm interested to know what people would like to hear, because we could sit here and talk about, or I could sit here and talk about stuff that's totally irrelevant to you. If you know, if you've got any questions or you want to have a discussion about something, or you want to share something in the room, I just feel like what's on the top of my mind right now, what's really fresh for me, is connection. And I think, for me and my business and how I help people at the moment through the marketing, I feel it's so. One of the things that's missed greatly is the meeting people where they are bit, and that's the connection bit for me. And I see people so many times, trying to share the principles. If we're talking about the principles here, trying to share the principles with people before they've got that connection yet with people. And that's kind of that's what's fresh for me in the moment right now. But as I said, so coming from that perspective, I would really like to know. I don't want to miss the mark with anybody in the room, or with some people in the room, to see where you're at and what's alive for you right now, and what you'd like to hear about, and what's coming up for you. And if there isn't anything, that's cool too. We can just carry on, I guess. Or probably Dave's got a whole different idea. So
I like it. Yeah, what do you want to know?
Can I launch into that?
Absolutely.
Good. Go.
Because I was here last year and obviously this year, and I just avoid the business groups. And that was saying something to me. So I was in the group with Gabriella, and then I thought, no, I'm going to go into the business group, because I think I'm good at connection, and I've got lots of connections going on with people and groups that I love working with, but I haven't got a business. So I get so far with the connecting, and I've had lots of advice and stuff about marketing and do this and do that. So no advice. But it's interesting that I can't see what I'm doing as a business still. And I think there are a lot of people that are doing the same thing, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I don't tend to go teaching the 3 principles. I go and share whatever with, let's say, a college. I go into a college and I talk to the tutors and the young people, and I'm sharing the 3 principles, but through whatever makes sense to them. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what I do is intake, find out what their world is, and then join them in that world. And it's working really well. But then it's almost like it's like opposing magnets when it comes to charging, and sure. I'll charge the minimum amount, and I keep telling them, here's another pilot project. I keep calling them pilots. 10 years later, still doing pilots.
We're in year 38 of the At some point I will raise an invoice.
Here are my testimonials, great big chunk. But and maybe it's a one-to-one show, I don't know, but I just thought I'd bring that up because I think other people might be doing the same.
Yeah. I think it's great because I'm laughing, but I know about pilot programs.
Can I draw something? I don't care whether it gets on.
I think that's just to add to that.
Yeah, go on, keep going.
Kathy Casey said it sounds like you're still not seeing the value in what you're doing.
Right.
So maybe there's an issue in there. I think.
Do you think there's an issue there?
I have no idea. I'm just trying to No. I don't know.
I have an interesting. Is it okay if I say that?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's something interesting that happened to me because, as you know, that I at one stage in one of my lives helped people with special needs children to get what they needed from the government in England. And I had this thing that they shouldn't be charged because they had so many other things to pay for. Therapies, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language, swimming and all sorts of different things. So I had this thing in my head, I mustn't charge. And that's what I did. I did it as a labour of love, really. And then I went to a whole bunch of people and they said to me, no, we want you to help us, but not unless you charge us. Because if you don't charge us, then there's no worth to it. We don't treat it the same. And that was very interesting that they told me. that. Doesn't mean that I went into my, what I do now like that, because I didn't, but that took me a while.
Yeah.
But it was just very interesting.
I love that. But what I pick up from that, and this is something personal that I see in the value piece, is I hear it a lot in the business world, and I might have got it completely wrong. Again, this is my personal opinion, but a lot of teachers out there are talking about owning your self-worth, know how much you're worth, charge what you're worth, blah blah, all that stuff that you've probably heard out there in the business world. Well, for me, it feels exactly the opposite way around. It's like I'm not charging you, as I'm your coach. I'm not charging you because of my self-worth and how much I feel good about myself. I'm charging you because I know that you're okay, and I want you to see that. And it's about your self-worth. So if you're not willing to invest in yourself already, that says something about you to me already. So if I'm having a conversation, about money, then I'm going to talk about that. It's like, okay, so what is it that he's probably writing something exactly the opposite of what I'm saying.
No. I'm writing what you're saying.
Oh right.
Just to see if the penny drops. For anybody.
Connection.
2 pennies are dropping. 3 pennies are dropping.
Oh, yeah. So for me, it feels like
Euros.
let's turn. It's like the principles. It's not that way around. It's this way around. It's a misunderstanding as to, and this is where people get into trouble with the charging, is because they get in their own way with their own thinking. It's about me. What will people think about me? Are they going to judge me? Is it about? You should be sitting here, Dave. Is it? Will they think I'm being greedy? Will they? And that's the thinking that gets in the way. And when we take the emotion and the thinking out of it, it's just a straight transaction in a way. It's just take that off it. What's it? It's just like, well, this is how much I charge, and do you want to pay that? But then, of course, we're human beings and we have emotion. And I like to. The word I prefer is appreciation versus value. Just for me, it's simpler. It's like, how much are we appreciating ourselves? How much are we loving ourselves? Are we willing to invest in ourselves? Because when we're charging, it's not about us. It's not like, give me some money so I can pay my mortgage, or give me some money so I can buy some food. It's not. It's like, would you like to partake in this program or in this session for you? It's about you. It's not about anybody else. That's my take on it anyway. I don't know what you've been scribbling on. I always have a bit of nervousness with Dave because he goes in exactly the opposite direction. But that's okay because we're human. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Is there something fresh for you there? Do you hear something new or no? Okay.
Oh, no, I love what you're saying. And this isn't about you or me, but it's about, I've been hearing that for years, since I was in homeopathy and other kind of, and I'm obviously needing to hear something different because it's still, the pen's not dropping.
Okay.
Anybody explain what I've drawn
A leaf.
and why? Sorry, I got the C wrong. I got the wrong C for the bottom connections.
The top is the fact,
Okay, good.
and the bottom is little mind,
Yeah,
ego.
perfect. Okay, so see if we can break it down. Am I allowed to stand up? I don't care.
Do what you want.
Like, mostly what we hear in principles events is around not circumstance feeding connection, thought feeding connection. But most things bottom out at that point, and then everybody's talking about the self, about how I or me relate to this. Missing that the self, the I or me, is part of the same construct. It's made up.
Yeah. Is it just to get clear on the letters?
Yeah. So you'll hear people say the little self or the little mind or the little I or whatever. That which you hear in your head, your narrative about how you're doing, is part of the narrative. It doesn't exist other than within your own thought. So that takes us back to principles, because these are principles. And if you can realize that, you'll realize that the me that you think is in your way is also part of the mirage. It doesn't exist, which is why it's an absolute bitch to solve it, because it isn't real. So, which is why when you take action, when you start doing stuff, all of a sudden you can solve things, because it's quite straightforward to solve things when you're doing it. So there's that whole kind of like mirage piece where there's lots of noise and lots of conversation about it, but it's missing this, which is where the gold is, and that's understanding who you really are. Because who you really are, which is formless, comes before any of this form. Any of it. That's who you really are. So it's not that you catch glimpses of it. It doesn't change. Who you really are never changes. Who you really are is that which sees the illusion saying it's catching glimpses. And it's an illusion. That's all it is. It's a mirage. I'm just watching Steve. So that's why the little and the big. So we can come back to that.
So thought is doing the thinking.
Thought is doing the thinking.
It's not us that does the thinking, it's not what does the thinking.
It's just thought. Right? It's just thought. So the me, the us, the we, the little I is thought. Doesn't exist. Other than in thought. So everything I'm saying is coming into form from the formless. So the moment your mouth opens, you're like, you're now in that place. So the moment you start to talk about I, and you hear it or me, well, this is how it is for me, and I feel better. You're that which sees the feeling better. That's what you are. You're not the thing that's feeling better. You have to apply the thought me to be the thing that feels better. And so you hit the nail on the head when you said it's misunderstanding. And so it's important to come back to it and look at it again and not start describing this as human experience like it's fixed. It's human experience. It's human experience. Oh, no, hang on. Hang on. We haven't started having this conversation yet. Here's the conversation we want to have with our clients. Yeah? Because in that realm, otherwise you just sound like everybody else. So you're now in the charging bracket of everybody else. You're just another ology of some form. Because you're in the form, yeah? Come out the form. Go to the formless. They've never heard anything like it. Now you judge what you like. You talk form with people. They're going to compare to your competitors, your hairdresser, the car, whatever. Formless. Now you create the value proposition together. Completely different way of looking at it.
Would you share an example of how that's happened for you, Dave?
I'd like to hear practically.
Yeah, to hear
what
something
that means.
practical.
Practical, Dave.
No, I
Yeah,
think
practical.
so that's good to help people
Yeah.
and me as well, because I'm hearing what you're saying and I'd like to hear how that's worked for you.
Sure. So all my work currently is like that. All of it. So at some point, somehow, I meet somebody. And there's a million ways of doing that. Because we're humans and there's 7.8 billion of us on the planet. So there's that. And then people tell you what's going on for them, or for their organisation, or whatever. And you listen, and you ask them questions. It's everything you've heard. So it's nothing any different in the form. The difference is in the understanding of who you really are. That's the difference. So that's why I loved when you said connection. But I think often when people are talking connection, they're talking it with a small c. They're talking little mind to little mind connection, or ego connection, or small s, self connection. And there's such a golden opportunity to see the bigger picture, to see the connection beyond that, which isn't something that ever disappears, because it's who you are. It's completely who you are. So it doesn't go anywhere. It's not something you've got to drop into, or all the other industry phrases, or be open to, or allow. How can you allow what you are? It's what you are. So it's far more about the realization of what you are and staying on that. And then it's just a conversation with another human being. So, practical example. So I was introduced through a client to a, what is she? Director of Education for a multi-academy trust. So who do some work in schools. And we met at my favourite coffee shop at Blue Water, hot chocolate shop really. And we drank hot chocolate and we chatted. And she was, she had a lot going on, and we chatted for about 2 hours. And at the end of it, she said, well, I've never had a conversation like that before. So I said, well, is that good or is that terrible? She said, no, it's good. It's challenging what you're saying, but it's good. Cool. What do you want to do next? Well, I'd like to meet with you and do it again and see if we can construct something. Cool. When would you like to meet? Diary out. Meet. So we do the same again. And in that conversation, we just explore again, the same. And she talks about the challenges for her head teachers, the stress they're under, how she'd like to do something about that. They're big believers in coaching anyway, but their coaching has become very formulaic and very sort of ego-based coaching. Yeah. So how are you? Well, I don't know, hang on, I'll adventure you and then I'll tell you how it is, to get. So they want to get out of that. So they know they're onto this. People are onto this. They're ready for us to tilt them. But you've got to come out of that one. That's murky water to get to that one. And so we're chatting, we're conversing, and to start with, she's got an idea of stuff, and I just go, no, that isn't going to work. And she's like, well, I said, what occurs to me is let's look at it like this. And I said, we need this amount of time. We need to do this many preparatory calls. We need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. Lifing, yeah? It's coming to you real time because of who you are, not who you think you are. Only who you think you are will ask the question, how would I do that? Because that's the thought. Yeah, that makes sense? Yeah, cool. Right, who you are is the one doing it. So we just talk and we construct, and we came up with a program, a pilot program. Genuinely, because it's the first time that they've done it. Pilot program, we said, great, let's test it, let's do that. So, on the back of that, it occurred to me that I needed some lovely people to come and work with me. So I created another thing for coaches that I did, which, Amanda came to, and we did that. And so when people talk about, the unfolding, that is life. We are life unfolding. But through misunderstanding, we can create a character that starts to describe things like allowing the unfolding. How do you allow an unfolding? Or when I get out of my own way. Who the hell are you in that sentence? It's like one of the most confusing sentences for a human. If I allow myself to get out of my own way, where do you begin with that? Whereas once you realise that you're lifing, and I'm using the word realise almost with a capital R, this is who I am. You're doing the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next conversation, and meeting the next person. How do we construct fees? I sat down and thought, I wonder what it would be nice to make out of this. Added it up, showed her, and she went, no way! We don't have that. I'm like, oh, cool. What do you have? She's pretty canny, so she says, well, you could do that. I'm like, no way, that ain't happening. I can't get people in for that. That's just not going to happen. So we settle in the middle, that's just the normal realms of business, isn't it? There's nothing unusual. Yeah, that's the point. It's practicality. It's not romantic and fluffy and storytelling and beautiful and airy and fairy. It's rather mundane and ordinary, which is lovely. It's such a relief to cut the drama. Cut the drama. Cut the drama of the little letters and get into the reality of who we really are.
So I have a question. So what do you do to, well, let me just think about what my question is.
Good.
So what do you,
Good.
so this is something just that I've heard along the way.
Yep.
Like you hear lots of different things, you know, from different people. And so and Sheila knows what about me very well. But one of the things I've heard is, well, you know, if someone perceives your worth, now I don't mean your worth, the worth of what you're talking about. So if someone comes to me, for example, and I have I don't know what you want to call it, an intake session, I wouldn't call it that, but you know,
Okay.
we have a session where we you know, I want to see if we're a good match. So they, you know, works on both ways. And then I tell them this is how much it is. And I see sometimes, and sometimes I don't. Well, people grab that because they think, wow, that was an amazing session and that's worth a huge amount. In fact, that's actually cheap. So that goes against what you're just saying. Because you're saying, well, I came to a price and then she had a price and then we came to something in the middle. So I'm saying that what happened, you know, what about the element of something that's really has been, like your pilot program. Do you see what I'm trying to get at? Your pilot program? No,
Not yet.
Yeah.
You will! I'll get through to you.
No, I
Like
see
your
it.
pilot
Sue, I see it perfectly.
You know, if Mandy's pilot program, you know, like what I was giving to people with special needs, to special needs money, they could see that there was something that I was telling them that was really worthwhile.
Cool.
They wanted me to charge money,
Cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I got in the way. And I know he doesn't like it, but I don't care because I did. I got in the way.
Bless you.
But the thing is that you know, really, if you turned around to someone and said, "Oh, it's, I don't know, I'm making this up, £100," yeah. So, you know, people would say, "Wow, that's really worth it. Of course, I'd pay that." And the only thing that's stopping you from doing that is you're thinking that you're not enough and that maybe they wouldn't feel that it's worth it. But if you're giving someone value, which you know, and they perceive that, then they're going to buy into it anyway, aren't they?
What's
Am
your
I going
question?
off the, I'm not making a question, really.
Oh, okay. No, you said I've got a question.
I guess
No. Yeah, shoot.
well, it is in a way. How is it that if what I see is, you know, someone's perceived value for something, why would you in any way need to get in? I mean, I'd hate to haggle, honestly.
Yeah, no, well, hang on. So just 2 seconds. So you're taking the form of what I said in one example,
Well, I don't
and
understand
trying to turn it into a rule, and I'm not saying
I
that.
don't understand that, honestly.
Cool.
Just me.
No, that's
I don't
cool.
understand form and formula. So
Okay.
just
Okay.
something I.
No, so, all right, so let's use different language.
Thank
Can I just say that maybe
Yeah, go on.
it feels like what you did was just come to an agreement.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was just
Yeah.
coming to an agreement where you're
Yeah,
both
yeah.
actually in agreement of what you want to create together as a collaboration, not as a coach and a coachee, but like co-creating something together to make whatever you want to make happen.
And it doesn't happen like that every time.
No.
So on other occasions, people will say to me, "How much is it?" And I say, "It's this." And they go, "Okay," or "No," and I'm like, "Okay."
Okay, but that's, you know, I hear that. I see that. I can see that. But that's fine. But, you know, if you're doing something else, and business isn't just one-to-one or one, you know, in going into a school or into an institution. Business is a whole bunch of other things. There's a whole big world out there, like creating courses online and everything. And you can't suddenly say to someone, well, how about this price? You know, does that do for you? No, you have to have a price, and you have to give a value. You know?
Can I be really blunt? You're not listening.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying that it's the same thing every time. You asked for, or the group asked for an example, so I gave you one. I can give you lots of examples where I tell people this is the price, which is what you're saying. So like an online course, it would be, okay, the price of the online course is Or like for my coaching leaders course, the price is 595 including VAT. There it is. There's no haggle on it. That's the price. So yeah, 100%. Did that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Can I give a practical example of that, where it did work for me?
Yeah.
So this was an organisation that provide support for adults with autism. So we did a pilot project. So I worked with 30 members of staff, and the connection was what was great. They could see the value of it. So for next year's budget, they're reconfiguring their budget, taking a bit from this training, a bit from that training to make it happen. But what you're saying is absolutely right. It came from connection. I didn't say this is my price. I invited them to join me in a pilot program, so there was a real connection there. It was a mutual thing, and part of it, I think I charged $250 for the day, and part of it was that they gave me testimonials.
Perfect.
And it worked well enough for them to say we'd like some more of this.
Perfect.
So there's a I am doing it, aren't I?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm off back to Gabriella.
No, I just want to pick up on kind of what I was hearing in the conversation, and the example you gave about what may have seemed like haggling and come in between. There was a point where you decided that was right for you. When you were going through that process, what were you noticing about where you were coming from?
Oh, I don't pay any attention to that. You see, only this would pay any attention to that. Yeah, I've got to create a me that has a view on where I am, moment to moment. Exhausted.
Let me tweak that question.
Go for it.
Where were you coming from?
I don't know. It's like now. I don't know. I'm just sitting here chatting, answering questions, probably talking to you. I've got no. I can see no benefit from that. That is the kind of question that the small self will ask. I just don't see the relevance of the question.
Well, you don't see the helpfulness of the question.
Yeah, it's so. I've said that to a few people over the last couple of days. They've asked me a question, and it's like we had this last night chat, didn't we, Marina? Marina would ask a question, and she'd be sitting there like, and I'm like,
Waiting for a wise answer.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like, and it's like sometimes it doesn't make that much sense to answer the question, because we don't check out where the question came from, or sometimes they're just not great questions.
So can I add to that? Because I think I'm thinking about what Philippe was saying. I was in a situation recently where connecting really well with somebody from the local authority, and they said we got to charge, what were the charges, and in my head it was £600. What came out was 250. And I could almost feel this came insecurity like lightning, and affected what came out of my mouth. It's like, where the hell did that come
Well, you
from?
could, you could interpret it as that, but you could have a different interpretation on it. That, like 250, might have been the right price, but you thought 600. You thought 600. Doesn't mean it's real. It's just a thought. But actually, what came out was 250. There's the price. Yeah. So it's if you imagine it like a movie. You're watching the movie going, oh, no, it was that one. Well, what if it was the other way around? What if the 600 was just some kind of inflated notion, whatever, and actually, if you to try and use the language of the event, the wisdom spoke and said 250. Bam, deal done. Every day a winner. Yeah? You see, who is the one who's telling you it's insecure?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Only your thinking can tell your thinking it's insecure.
So it's coming back to my question.
Oh, did you have a question?
It was shot down, but I'm bringing it back. How is my question relevant to what she just said?
I can't even remember your question.
No, I know.
What was the question?
Where is it coming from?
Yeah, it was just asking, like, where were you coming from when you said that? Why would what? It's okay. I'm asking you this question.
Yeah, no, I know.
And I know you're reflecting it, but it's okay if you don't want to answer it. I'll just.
Can I say that? Can I ask the question maybe in a way that you can maybe answer it?
Sure, yeah.
He's going to ask in Spanish.
So,
Yeah, then I'm really bugging.
I'll translate this.
Go.
Sidekick.
Can I ask, what do you mean by where were you coming from?
Well, thank you for being interested in my question.
I'm interested in the question. Yeah, but let's
Maybe he's going to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe he's going to say
Okay.
his version of what he thinks he's saying.
Okay.
Go ahead, Juan.
yeah, I'm on it. You said that the only thing that matters to you. Maybe I'm also not saying what you said, but I think that the only thing that matters to you is that you are in the connection self, like you are up there, not down there. Like you are calibrating to where you are.
Keep going.
So I'm not saying that you are speaking to yourself, and I think Philippe is not saying that you are speaking to yourself, and I think his mind or whatever. Not saying that you are speaking to yourself and saying, "Oh, where am I? Am I here? Am I there?" No. But you need to have a sense, an intuition that tells you whether you are in a place or another place. I call it whatever. This is just words, but you need to calibrate to that because this is the only thing that matters.
Well, okay, what if you don't? What if you don't need to do any of that? What if the need to do that just comes out of misunderstanding? Yeah, look at the physical effect of that. Even if the thought that thinks it's true, the physical effect of hearing that is huge. Now look at that. Look at how many out-breaths come involuntarily. Now you point that out to clients, it takes you out of the intellectual realm into something more powerful. That the mind's kind of going, because there's nothing to catch on to. Like we spent 3 days doing this. Think of what day one was like people's thinking, screaming, trying to find something, not answering questions, like the rudest thing on the planet. Appearing to disrespect what someone says. You do that with a client, with a prospect, you capture their attention. Policy. Feel it?
Is it simply that you are where you're meant to be at a given time? There is no... I used to do what Sue did, which is to advocate for kids with special needs. And not only did I not charge, it was a charitable, inverted commas.
That's right.
I'm also a homeopath, and I don't practice homeopathy because I may have to charge. I look after my parents' business, and my charging, they have holiday flats, so people may ring up or online and say, please can we come and stay, how much will you charge? How much do you charge? And I say, oh, right, okay, £100 less than the given price actually is at any given time, whatever day I am. And I'm sitting here thinking, perhaps I should be really charging at the top of the game. I should be charging for. I actually should be practicing homeopathy. I should be charging. I don't do advocacy anymore, but I do counselling a bit. And I suddenly realised, I've sodded. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I'm quite happy doing the way I'm doing it. It doesn't matter whether I should be making more money or whether I'm destitute. It doesn't matter at all. Because I'm okay really with all of this. I am where I'm meant to be.
Then why are you in here?
Why did I come to the business class? Because I haven't done business. I've been to well-being and relationships, but I haven't. And I wanted to see you two as well. So yeah.
Do you know the funny thing is that the business is a bit of a red herring.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It really is. And it's easy to say things like, it's a grounding issue, or all the kind of phrases that we hear a lot. But if you can see, or when you realize that thought is a principle, and that from that principle you can create something that is able to say my thought, but you have to use thought to create that. And so a lot of questions are asked from that my space, if you like. A lot of questions come out of the presupposition that we are our thinking. You're not.
How is it possible to ask a question from anything other than that space?
I love that. So
Well, it's not, right?
sit with that for a bit.
Well, I'm saying we could just sit here in the space, but there is there's something about awareness and understanding. Okay, I don't know what I'm saying now.
No, but
Just sit with it, it's fine.
isn't that lovely though?
Yeah.
Seriously, that's lovely. I can feel that. You can feel
I
that
can
sitting
feel
next to
that.
you. I can feel that. You can feel the tension of the illusion coming out, and sometimes it comes out like, oh, for fuck's sake, whatever.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, it's like, yeah, but oh my God, that, you see, have that with a client, prospect, call them what you like, just humans, as far as I can tell. Yeah, that's gold. What you're experiencing now, that's gold.
Well, what are you
Seriously.
experiencing?
Yeah, I was going to, that's,
Yeah, I
is it
wanna
gold
ask.
to you? Is it gold to you?
It doesn't feel like to me.
No, it's trying to put something in words which is beyond words, and so knowing that anything I try to say is going to get shut down, I better just stay silent, because what I want to say is beyond words. So if I just be quiet, I can communicate much better.
Yeah.
And I think gold doesn't necessarily come with a good feeling. So, I was sitting here, particularly at the beginning part, feeling really irritated with you, which I knew I would. Partly why I came in. I felt the Dave effect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because there's information in that.
Yeah.
I really know there is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that following the good feeling,
Bollocks.
just a long time ago.
I was never listening. Well, it's listening for a feeling, isn't it? It's not.
And
knowing there's
whatever.
information in it, I don't know what the information is, but so sticking with it, quietly maybe, or noisily, it doesn't matter, whatever comes to mind. And that's the illusion, is the gold. Gold is shiny and exciting and fun, and it's not necessarily.
Somebody, I think it was, I can't remember, I think it was Jenny yesterday. At the beginning of her session was talking about the gift of seeing its experience. And so many conversations are based around trying to make it some specific type of experience versus seeing that it is experience. Yeah, that's the difference. So many of the conversations are still about trying to make it good, not bad. Trying to be this, not that.
Yeah.
That's what the non-duality people call duality. I need to be this, not that. Yeah. It's exhausting. Wear you out. That word wears you out.
That's why I love Sid. That one of my favourite quotes at the moment from Sid is that can't do it exactly, but it's what people weren't afraid of the experience.
That's my
You see it. That's so it, Sheela, right? You have this as a realization. This doesn't matter.
What is TC? I don't understand. What's going on there? TFCF.
We'll talk about it later.
All right.
At lunch, is that all right?
Don't bother.
or we can talk about it now. So that's so mostly people talk about thought feeling connection versus circumstance feeling connection.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. I could have just said that. I thought I'd said
No,
that.
you did say it. You
yeah.
said it earlier.
But,
Yeah.
No. So the bottom there is circumstance feeling. So we now know that feelings aren't coming from circumstance; they're coming from thought formed in the moment. So that's generally like the conversation in principles-based events. But what tends not to be conversed quite so much is that within that thought is something that we call I or me, but that's still part of thought. Yeah. And if you realise that which is commentating on your circumstances is made up, now you've got thought not as personal thinking, so I am caught in my thinking, complicated sentence. Now you've got a principle of thought which takes you home again to who you really are before you start thinking. Yeah. So who you really are is formless, that without form. And your experience is formed through the principles of mind, thought and consciousness.
What do you mean by before we start thinking?
Hang on, sorry.
Oh, sorry,
What?
someone else, I can see.
It was like half a second before.
Oh.
Sorry, the word that keeps coming to mind for me is presence.
Yeah.
It's presence. It's like we had a lot of this with Jack with the deep listening exercise,
Yeah.
and if we're doing the practicing coaching, you don't say anything, so something. You feel it coming up from perhaps nowhere. That's just my language I'm using at the moment.
Yeah. No, fine.
And to me, that's what I'm hearing. You're saying it's like you're staying in the unknown. You're not staying in what you already know. That's where we shoot ourselves in the foot. I shoot myself in the foot all the time with it.
Well, you said this morning, rest in peace. The way I see it is rest in presence.
Yeah, you could say rest in love,
Yeah.
rest in being.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And any of those things that describe something that is intangible or spiritual or formless or whatever. And from that arises experience. It's just experience. It's just experience. That's what it is. But what we get hoodwinked into doing is to try to manufacture how that experience should look in order to meet some criteria that's been made up within the experience itself. Does that make sense? You follow that? So we make up the way an experience should be by creating this thing called I or me, which is then able to give us feedback on the experience live. Messy, challenging to navigate in that environment. But if you see that thing that's made up is all part of experience, it's just experience now. There's no need to be frightened. That's the quote you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're a being experiencing. The experience of experiencing experience, maybe. Nothing to be scared of.
I remember when I first really saw this in a different way with Paul Morgan Summers.
Yeah.
And I tried to talk without using the word I or me for
Really
ages.
difficult.
And he told me that was just stupid.
Yeah.
I tried it for ages.
Yeah.
Is this then this I and
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
And I tried to talk without it, but that's just the way we talk.
Exactly. And that also becomes a game of like the I becoming the not I. And actually what we're describing is that sees all.
Try Spanish. You have to use me or I
Try to move the language.
Yeah, rather than seeing that, we are that perceives all. That's what we really are.
Really?
Yeah.
Truly?
Yeah.
100% sure?
Who says that?
That's the way I was going.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
It's
who
like-
are we?
Sue's still confused.
Yeah. What do you mean by before we start thinking?
I'm saying perhaps a better word would be one,
Yeah, why not?
because that incorporates all
We do speak like that, don't we?
We do.
One would.
One would.
One would.
That's the
One
Queen's
night.
language, isn't it? The Queen says that.
The Queen does.
And the
And
Queen's
the
on
British,
it.
the British do, don't they?
Doesn't mean we can't say that.
The
So
Queen's on it.
what other questions do we have? Because it's easy to get bogged in, isn't it, to become heavy and whatever. What other questions?
I want you to answer my question.
Yeah, at some point, yeah.
Dave. Dave.
What
What
other
was your
questions do we
question?
have?
How can we charge more? How can we make?
No, I want to
how can we
help.
be
I asked
comfortable?
about.
No, yes, you did, yeah, you did. What other
I
questions?
think this is a different one.
Another question was raised was about money, right? About actually getting some money in our bank accounts.
But I made that up because I am charging and I've
Yeah.
got money going in my bank account. So I don't know what that was
I don't
all
know.
about.
I still don't have enough.
Funny.
Don't have enough.
I'm spending my
Well, but I do, as I said, right? I have enough.
I hear you. I hear you. And say that a lot.
It's my
I
familiar
don't have
story,
enough. I
isn't
don't
it?
have enough, and yet I see. This is a personal. You know, knowing you personally, I see you spending money left, right, and centre all the time. But you're always telling me that you've got no money, and I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Curious that you've got that story running that I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. But you manage to pay all the time for everything that you want. Not even what you need, what you want.
Tired.
You're tired.
It's really tired
What do you think?
to do that.
What do you think that's about then?
That I need to work less and charge more.
I don't know. Your wisdom's going to speak to you.
I can't carry
Or
on
wisdom.
doing what I'm doing. I can't. It feels like that. I can't carry on healthily working so many hours and not charging enough.
Shall I tell you how I created my corporate rates? Is that useful?
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to get into corporate executive coaching because it tends to be really well paid. Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
It's really lucrative work, and I didn't have credentials, credibility in that market, so I wanted to create that. So through various circumstances, I found executives to work with, and to start with, it was for nothing. And so I learn because it's a skill, so it's useful to know how to do it, like operating a camera really well. It's useful to know how to do it. Any of us could just push the button. That doesn't make you a good cameraman or camerawoman. So I practiced, I learned. I got feedback from the best place I could think of, the client. Rather than worrying about where I am or any of that like stuff that would just send me into a spin. And I practiced, and eventually the guy said, look, we have to pay you for some other stuff we want to do. And I said, cool. Just as a matter of interest, what do you pay your top coaches? A bit cheesy, whatever. And he went, oh, it's about that. I went, cool. This worth more or less? And he went, oh, way more. Oh, bugger. And I said, I'm serious, help me out here. What do you think it would be? He said, look, for what you're doing, it really ought to be this. I'm like, cool, you happy to pay that? Cool. I said, are you happy that I tell other people that you're happy to pay that? He said, yeah, of course, good. So I had a rate. That's how I created my first rates for corporate coaching. Yeah? Based on market research. That's just market research. It's normal in business. It's not the fact that we're so busy thinking about thinking and talking about thinking. It's distracting. Take a food company. How does a food company make a new product? They go to the market, see what the market would like. They design the product, they create it, they go out to the market and say, taste it for me. Give me feedback. They do that. They look at the market price. We're ignoring all of the practical, not sexy, not glamorous, in favour of like trying to find oneness. You know, I mean, you don't. To make a cup of tea, you don't need to find oneness, do you? You don't. If you run a shop, I said this to somebody this morning. You don't need to find a good feeling to turn the sign to open. It would be bizarre to, oh, where am I? It doesn't matter. Just put the bloody open sign and let customers come in. It's just, it's so distracting as to be untrue. So no wonder people are confused.
Is it though? Because if I go to the shop one morning and I really don't feel comfortable and I've had this, I don't know, feeling of impending doom, a bit of in a way, it's a bit like what you're saying. But, you know, why would I want to open? Why should I? If just because, you know, just open it and shut up. Why? Because
Well, you could.
that's not tapping into anything that I see would be helpful to me.
Why would you take the voice in your head that tells you how you're feeling so enormously seriously that you need to respond to
Who
it?
said it's in my head?
Well, okay.
I
Do
mean,
you want
I'm
customers?
talking about. No, because I can go into business or anything and do something, and then I
Yeah.
realise, well, I don't want to do that anymore. It's something that I don't feel
Oh, well, that's cool.
right for me.
That's
So
cool.
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
No, I
So why
wouldn't-
would I have to open the shop every day? Just get on with it.
Well, no,
It
you
is
wouldn't.
to do
You
with
could
me
sell the shop.
listening
then,
to
couldn't
my
you?
feelings. It is to do with that, isn't it? That is to do with listening to my wisdom, my common sense. I like common sense more
Yeah.
because it's my sense that is common to everybody and is informing me, hey girl, don't do that anymore, it doesn't feel easy,
Yeah,
it doesn't feel
perfect.
comfortable.
Can I
Perfect.
just say, I spent years getting really confused with that, relying on my feeling to tell me whether to do something or not, and I would not do things.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not really saying that.
Okay, I'm confused.
No, I hear what you're saying. Spot on. Yeah, absolutely. When you know it's time to put closed, you know. It's what took me out my, like business job to come do all this stuff. I think we've hit
Looks
time.
like
by the
we
look
need
of
to
it.
finish the
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.